On today's show, has Jason Kidd's performance this season been enough that it's worth firing? How has Jason Kidd done this season? We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member at NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen each and every day. We are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day and to comment anything below. Let us know, how would you grade Jason Kidd's coaching job this year? If you are Jason Kidd and you're listening to this, I do not recommend going into those comments because it will not be nice. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And joining me, as always, my co-host, writer, and contributor at Mavs.com, the coaching carousel, the One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Speaking of coaching, I had a coaching moment the other day with my son. Right? So let's do a little flashback to youth soccer on Saturday. Is my son's second game. It's my daughter's too, but she's really struggling of staying out there. She doesn't really want to run around.
She's not playing. She's just a spectator. Right?
No, she's on the team, but she's not really she's not about it right now. So
got a jersey, but not playing.
Yeah, paid $80 for her to sit in a chair. So, so anyway, my son is like running towards the sideline. Yeah, in the game, he's loving it. He's having a blast, and the opposing player, there's another player that comes by, and like this little kid, he's like 4, and like kind of forearms him and is like pushing him, and my son's like looking at him, and anyway, ball goes out of bounds. Some parents are like joking, like, Isaac, man, they're getting a little handsy out there with Rome. And so anyway, it's halftime. He comes over and I was like, dude, this is like the first moment ever in my life. I was like, Rome, you see that kid out there? You run through him. Like you don't listen to him. It doesn't matter if, and he's like looking at me, his eyes are like all big. He's used to me telling him, don't hit your sister.
Nice, yeah.
Just keep going. Just run right through him. And yeah, so he got all excited. He's like, all right, I can be rough now. So anyway, I've been trying to
so then what happened?
That. I'm like, oh no, I mean, they're 4. So it's like, I don't even think he remembered him out there. But I was like all worked up for him. I'm like, oh my gosh, am I going to be one of these parents? Am I in the wrong? I've been processing it a lot and trying to find number one's parents over there. Like, which one? Whose parents is that? Let's go.
Everybody has a poster, our kid's number 1. Like, that's not helping me.
Anyway, I just had to share that.
Amazing. So, sports parents, let Isaac Harris know if he did the right thing or if he did it. Amazing. On today's show, I want to talk about Jason Kidd because after the Grizzlies game, there was a lot of talk in our comment section on Twitter, all over Mavs Reddit, everywhere about Jason Kidd and the job Jason Kidd has done this season and how we think Jason Kidd has coached. And I want to eventually get to the question, has his performance this season been worth firing? And I think we can start with this. I mean,
what a cold open you had.
I mean, that's the question. It's like, I see a lot of, I even saw Mavs FFL, a really big Mavs fan account, tweet this graphic that's fire Kidd. Like, people are starting to get behind this. And I want to ask the question. And so, is Jason Kidd the Mavericks' biggest problem? Let's start there.
Oh gosh. No. I don't think it's the biggest problem. I think when, if you sit there and we had the pod, the other day, it was like Luka versus the roster and, people had their opinions on that and some of it spewed over the Twitter. I started getting some random tweets about hey, Luka problem. I'm like, what are you doing?
Mute on site. It's mute on site season for me right now. I don't care. I tweeted about everything everywhere all at once tonight because they won all the Oscars and I was excited because I love that movie. Like 4 or 5 people that just crapped on that movie. I'm like, mute on site. Don't care. I don't care about any of your other opinions. Just I'm not happy.
Okay, well that can be a little dangerous if your Twitter follow, it's just your bubble. But I have muted.
I don't care. It's Twitter. It's my Twitter. I get to decide my bubble.
That's true. I have muted.
I have other places. There are other places in my life.
if you sat there and went down a list of like, hey, what's, reasons to blame, I kind of did like 4. It's like health, kid, roster, Luka, like those 4, not in that order. And I think, kid is on the list. I just still, go back to the roster as like the biggest thing. I still go back to some of the roster flaws. I still go back to, losing Jalen Brunson for nothing. I just think that is the biggest problem in some of this right now I just don't think Jason Kidd is the biggest problem. Just like kind of Luka. I think Luka has some blame. I think there are some problems with Luka's, play / situation right now, but I don't think it's the biggest problem. It's the roster.
I'm with you. I don't think it's the biggest problem. I do think it is a problem. And I think that all these things probably have like a 25%, like it's all kind of together. This team is not garbage. This team is not good, or, so it's like they're right in between. They're literally 500 right now. And so all of their problems just all kind of add up. I don't think that Jason Kidd has elevated this team this year. Right, I think even Jeff Skin Wade would agree with that this season. Skin's been on a tear on Twitter recently too. I don't think that we love Skin. But then where would you rank coaching when it comes to their biggest problems? You mentioned them. What was it? It was health. It was
Kid, Luka, roster.
Kid, Luka's play, roster. Roster to me is probably the number one. I mean, we talked about it from day one. Like they would have to play a certain. It's probably roster number 1 for me. Health is probably number 2, and then for me it's Kid 3. I think I would put Kid 3 after that, and I may put him number 2 as far as what's the biggest problems for the Mavericks, because his rigidness. My dog disagrees. His rigidness this season with who he wants to play, who he wants to put out there, the things that he's tried, and things like that, I think has held this team back a little bit. I'm not going to go fully into the Christian Wood thing, but there's something going on with that.
I figured that would come up at some point today, because you got to ask yourself the question, like, why are some people bringing up the whole thing of like fire Kid, and all of that? Because you ask yourself the question, why do coaches get fired in the league? Is it because of results? When you look at results, and this is going to come across as like a pro Kid thing. Whenever we can talk about things that we haven't liked about Kid, I tweeted out today. I was like, hey, there are plenty of things that Kid has done this year, rotation wise, plenty of things he said that I wouldn't say, or how he said things and all this stuff like that I would do differently. But when you look at why coaches are fired, you look at results. You look at, okay, a team has sucked for a long period of time.
Situation.
Well, they went to the Western Conference Finals last year. You look at, maybe a coach has lost a locker room. I've seen zero reports, nor have I heard anything about Kid losing the locker room or losing Luka Doncic. Like towards the end of Rick Carlisle stuff, you heard things,
yes,
both on the record and off the record, about the tension between Rick Carlisle and Luka. I haven't heard anything. I'm not saying, something could come out tomorrow about Luka and Kid riffs, and I would be like, okay,
how many we did like Luka body language doctor watch for like months with him and Rick Carlisle, and you saw it. Like you could see the frustration between him and Rick Carlisle. We haven't seen any little signs of that, and not that it doesn't happen, not that maybe he isn't frustrated by some things, but we just haven't seen it yet.
And what's another reason why a coach gets fired? Disconnect with the front office. Well, they're all friends, so once again, haven't heard anything either about a disconnect or a lack of trust with Kid, front office, ownership, and all that. So like, I know there's there's other smaller reasons why coaches get fired, but those are like 3 main reasons right there why coaches get fired. And when you look at it, it's like, okay, well, you kind of see why it's not as easy as, heck, go back to last year. We were joking about the Warriors. The Warriors won the title last year, and there were coaches. There were fans calling for, Steve Kerr's head on Twitter. All right. So, even Locked On Warriors, though, Cyrus was talking about, Steve Kerr last year. They go on to win the title.
He's been talking about him this year.
So I say all of that. I'm saying, and sometimes coaches get fired. It doesn't make a bit of sense to us on the outside. Yeah. And we're like, why did that coach get fired? And then sometimes a coach keeps his job for years, and you're like, why the crap does this guy have a coaching job? Like, I don't understand it from my seat. I say all that to say it's not a pro Kid thing. We can talk about all the things he's done wrong, but the whole it's much more complicated than the hey, fire Kid and keep Kid thing.
Coming up, let's talk about the biggest difference between this year and last year when it comes to Jason Kidd, the job that he's done, and the Mavericks team that he's coaching right now. We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. You can go to PrizePicks right now. Go to PrizePicks.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON. Get 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with that promo code LOCKEDON. James Wiseman, been playing pretty good basketball recently. Versus the Indiana Pacers. 16.5 points, more or less, Isaac Harris.
Oh, less.
Yeah, give me less on that one. We actually got a couple of Mavericks ones. Let's do some Mavericks ones because we have Desmond Bane right down the street. 23.5 points against the Mavericks on Monday. More or less.
Over.
More on that one. Dylan Brooks against the Mavericks. 13.5 points. Give me the less on that one.
Yeah.
What an embarrassment the other night from him. Even in a win. It's an embarrassing win. If you just did those two right now, if you pick those against the Mavericks, you put down $20, you can win 60. Put down $100, you can win 300. You can do all kinds of different stuff. I could add it with baseball. I can add it with the World Baseball Classic, NBA, like just in the fourth quarter, all that kind of stuff. Check it out. It's prizepicks.com. Promo code locked on. All right, Isaac Harris, thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every day and every post game. We are free and available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate every one of you guys. You're part of the Raccoon Squad if you listen every day. We have agreed that Jason Kidd's coaching is not the biggest problem the Mavericks have had. We agreed it is a problem for the Mavericks right now. So what's the biggest difference between last year when, before the season, you and I both were not excited about bringing in Jason Kidd as a coach. He didn't have a great track record before that. And then last year, he felt like he did a good job. This team knew their identity. They knew what they were. They went into the playoffs and they made it to the Western Conference Finals and way overachieved what anybody thought that they would. And so you look at that team, they play defense way above their heads, way above what we thought the personnel could do. And you look at it and you say, that was a pretty good coaching job. There were some things last year, we'll get into some of those, that didn't necessarily go well, but they overachieved in all retrospect. So would you agree that Jason Kidd did a good job last year? Because I kind of agree that he did, because he won me over last year. I was very against his hiring, and then all of a sudden I was like, okay, I think the Mavs can do this with Jason Kidd.
Well, it's so hard to evaluate coaching from our perspective, from an outsider's perspective, from a fan, a media perspective that's not, that's not in there. That's not seeing the, film sessions. That's not seeing how practices are ran and all of that. Because I think one of the things you got to consider in this is the difference between Rick to Kidd and the honeymoon phase, right? Sure. It was you going from, Rick Carlisle had been here for how many years? And then he's been, Luka's coach for, his whole career so far. And then the shift from Rick to Jason Kidd as this, the ultimate, old school coach, I'm trying to go with the right words here, to this players coach in Jason Kidd that is bringing Jared Dudley along and, keeping some of the guys from the old coaching staff. But Jason Kidd is just revered all-time point guard, just another, bro on the, ran the flat bills, backward flat bill Texas Rangers hat that he got for free.
Not gonna scream at you, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and just gonna walk in the room, and a lot of the players like Luka's man, you're one of the greatest point guards of all time. And so I think part of that had to do with, player effort, player buy-in, player relationships, chemistry on the team. It was immaculate vibes all year last year, right? We talked about Theo and Brunson, all those guys. What a fun run. The whole team.
Back half of the year was immaculate vibes. We did not have immaculate.
Yeah, well, yes. But the chemistry and everything was there for the team.
Right.
And there's some type of shift into this year as, we could talk about, how much the Brunson situation affected it. We can talk about the trade. We could talk about, all this different stuff. But there's a part of it, I think, that the honeymoon phase is just, kind of, now you've been married for 7 years. If you know that, it's now you've been married for the 7-year mark, and it's hey, all the honeymoon phase is kind of worn off at this point. Now it's all right. What are we going to do now? Now the X's and O's and all that stuff. Because I think I find myself, and I get why some people say the locker room, Kidd has lost the locker room and all that stuff. There's no reporting on it or anything, but I get why people can say that, because it does feel like the effort at times this year has been one of the biggest things. We can talk about roster construction with defense and all that, but the effort, and so much of defense is effort. And it feels like the effort hasn't been there as much this year as it was to last year. And you just have to ask yourself, what's the reason for that? Is it the lack of honeymoon stage anymore? Is it some coaching differences? Is it some roster stuff? I don't know what it is, but it feels like the effort's been off.
Yeah, that's a huge one, especially when you consider the defense. And the defense has been the biggest drop off. The biggest difference between last year and this year is the defense. You look at the Mavericks last year, and you have to put this caveat before any like team defense thing you talk about. Last year, there was a bunch of teams that had pretty good defenses, and this year you just see none of them. Like, there's just not a lot of good defense in the NBA right now. All the offense is up, all the free throws are up, all of offensive ratings are up. The Mavericks last year had a 110 defensive rating. That was 8th last year. And then you look at this season, and their defensive rating is a lot worse than that. They're getting to like the 118, 119 level right now, where they just haven't really. They're 116 for the season. They're 23rd. Their 110 defensive rating from last year would have ranked like 1 or 2 this year. That's the big difference. They were 8th last year. They would have been 1 or 2 this year with the same defense that they played last year. So it's just different when you look at, defense from last year to this year. But I do think that's one of the things that this team has struggled with the most is the personnel and the health of the defense. We haven't had, they didn't have Bullock, Dorian, and Maxi Kleber together enough before the trade. And now the Green, Bullock, Maxi pairing, we haven't seen a lot either. We've only seen that Bullock, Green, Maxi pairing this season, 259 possessions, which is like 2.5 full games. Just like not a terrible sample size, but also not good. 108 defensive rating. That's great. When those guys have played, it's been good this season, but they haven't played enough, so they haven't had the health. So if you're going to indict Jason Kidd on, okay, well, the defense is so much worse this year than it is last year, you have to look at that. The personnel that they have, trading Dorian Finney-Smith, they tried to get a center that was their biggest weakness last year. It didn't work. And then health. Like, you have to take those into account too, as well with this.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is like, you look at why the defense is bad, and it's like, yeah, okay, no Dorian. You look at some, roster turnover from last year, but, when you take Maxi out for a good chunk of this year and you insert 2 guys, remember Tim missed a lot of last year. Christian Wood's not the greatest defender. So you insert 2 guys into the rotation that are not great defenders. You take away one of your best in Maxi, and then you traded Dorian, and you bring back Kyrie. So it's like, you're losing some defenders, you're adding some that are not great defenders, and you're losing some of the continuity too. So it's just and there's a lack of effort. And so the question is, how much of that is to blame on Jason Kidd? And that, I don't know. I mean, some people are listening saying, yeah, that's all Jason Kidd. And I'm not going to sit there and tell you no, but I'm also not going to sit there and say it's all on Jason Kidd. So, or it's not Jason Kidd either. So it's just hard to figure out, like, what is Jason Kidd's fault? What is it Jason Kidd's fault that Luka's not, flying, to close out on people or getting beat backdoor? Or I've seen some people, say that it was Jason Kidd's fault that Luka didn't know the rule to go in the backcourt when Kyrie threw it, go in the backcourt.
I said that to you. I said that to you before the podcast, and I was like, I kind of blame that on Jason Kidd. And you pushed back on me, and I had to rethink it. And I was like, you know what? I think you're kind of right.
I'm like, is Jason Kidd supposed to tell Luka Doncic in the huddle, hey, remember, this rule is to... And listen,
it's fair.
I know
it's fair.
We can talk about things that Jason Kidd is. I mean, had some very cringy things this year that he has said. There's been some rotation things.
What are you talking about?
I'm not playing. I'm watching.
There's some rotation things that I don't understand at all. That I'd be like, hey, like, man, I would do that so different. There's some he coaches very passive, at least in games. It feels like
the timeout
feels like his. Yeah, it feels like he's a very passive coach. People talk about him going after refs, to take him for Luka or holding all the timeouts and some of the stuff. It feels like he sets down, which that doesn't mean the end of the world. But it's like I'm just saying that there's things that I would do different than Jason Kidd that I don't agree that he does, or I don't agree that he says post game or in media sessions. I'm like, okay, I don't know how much that makes sense. That was a really weird analogy, weird way to say that. I probably wouldn't agree with it. But it's just so hard to determine how much is his fault and not.
Another thing that people will point to is clutch games. So coming up, let's talk about that and the difference between last year and this year with clutch games when it comes to coaching. And then we'll ask the question, can the Mavs take a next step if Jason Kidd is the coach? We'll try to answer that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is a protein bar. It tastes like a candy bar. They're delicious. The Built March Madness bracket is here. We know you have a favorite bar or puff, and now it's time to make it count. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to vote. I'm going to go right now and vote. And builtmarchmadness.com.
You're going to vote right now? Live?
I'm going to vote right now and see what's available for you. Protein bar that tastes like candy bar. They're absolutely delicious. You can pick your bracket if you know them. First one up, banana cream puff versus peanut butter brownie.
No, send that banana home.
Do that one. Cookie dough chunk puffs versus the cookie dough bar. Oh, the puff versus the bar.
Give me the bar, baby.
Oh, I would go puffs in this one. I'll go with you. I'll go.
It's because you love puffs.
The coconut puffs versus the coconut bar. The first round is all the puffs versus the bar, which I think you like the bar better and I like the puffs better.
I'll take a bar over a puff all day.
Go check it out. It's built.com. You can also get them at Walmart and Sam's Club now. Again, built.com. Try the promo code LOCKED15 or Locked On.
Some of our listeners think I love the puff, though.
Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen. We appreciate each and every one of you guys. We've been talking about Jason Kidd's coaching job this season, and there have been some things that have not been good. There have been some things that have not been good that have not been his fault necessarily. that are put to blame.
Him addressing Twitter too, so cringy.
Twitter isn't the coach or the player.
It's tough.
Just don't give your energy to that, right? or this one.
I'm not playing. I'm watching, just like you guys.
That famous quote now came from a question that I asked him about timeouts and not taking timeouts when other teams are going on a run, which is what Isaac was mentioning earlier about coaching the game passively and all that. Clutch games is something else that I think is different from last year to this year. I think a lot of people will point to the job Jason Kidd has done and point to specifically the shots or the plays that have been called to get a game-winning shot or to get a shot at the last second. And the Mavs have run the same play over and over again where they try to get Luka, they run a pin down, they try to get Luka the ball, and it just doesn't work over and over and over again. They try this. But if you look at the team last year and this year, just in clutch games, so game within 5 points, 5 minutes or less. This is kind of the classic clutch stat. Last season, the Mavericks played 38 games out of 82 in clutch. They were 22-16 in that time. They had 108 offensive rating, which is awful. So they weren't good offensively in the clutch last year. And they had 118 defensive rating, which is putrid, like just brutal last year. And they still won 22 games and lost 16 in those clutch games. So they came out on top, but the process was not good to get there. Right?
What was the rebounding number? No, I was just kidding.
We need to get some kind of rebounding drop. We got to ask Kidd about rebounding and then see if he'll answer it.
Yeah.
This season, they've played 44 out of their 68 games in the clutch. So way more clutch games this season than last season. Their offensive rating, 106.9. Kind of the same like last year. It's bad. It's not good. Defensive rating this season in the clutch, 108.9, which is like elite, which is really weird that the Mavericks have a really good clutch defense, but their net rating is still negative, and they are 23-21 in clutch games this season. I agree with the people that have pointed out the shots to win the game or the final shots have been bad this season. They have not gotten good stuff. They have not gotten good things out of that. And I kind of point to, okay, it is coaching's problem to a degree that Luka is just exhausted by the time the fourth quarter comes, and then the offense isn't good. But it's all been on Luka. The offense up until they got Kyrie, the offense was just all on Luka at that point. How do you look at those clutch games and decide, okay, what is on Jason Kidd and what's not?
I would say, I don't. Is it all on coaching that all the offense is running through Luka though? I mean, what was your other option? I guess
then it goes personnel. But I think one of my big issues this season has been there's been no offensive process. There's been no system. There's been no thing. So when you get these games where Luka was out, there have been games this season where Luka and Dinwiddie were out. Obviously, we just had a game with Luka and Kyrie out, where you go, okay, you can't just run the same stuff that you run with Luka, right? Like McKinley Wright can't be running the same thing, and so you see that all fall apart because the system is built around Luka. The system is Luka. And then Kyrie comes and wants to push the tempo up, and all of a sudden we're talking about it like it's a brand new system because we've just run the same thing over and over again. And so I do blame the coach for that it has just been Luka. Now, I don't blame him for trying to maximize Luka as this offensive engine, right? Like you don't blame him for that, but to try and introduce some other concepts or try and introduce some other stuff so that when Luka is off the court, they have something else to go to, right? Or anything. Because remember, this season, it was just Luka ISO or Dinwiddie ISO. They're the number one ISO team in the league for a reason.
Yeah. We've talked about this a few times during games when Luka's out or, out for the whole game or whatever it is. It's like the offense hasn't changed much. It's like, all right, can we go to the drawing board a little bit when you don't have the, arguably the best isolation player in the league and we're still playing ISO ball and all that stuff. But now you go out and get arguably the second best ISO player in the league. And it's like, let's just do this hot potato back and forth. But I think, going back to your cold open of the fire kid thing, I think where I'm at with the kid stuff is you can make a case based off your confirmation bias for either side. I think if you want to say here and plant your flag on the Jason Kidd should be let go, you're naming all the stuff that we've mentioned, the rotation stuff, the weird stuff. I mean, all the quotes, the lack of the lack of coaching and what it seems from your perspective at times, and all that stuff. And, one of the biggest things is the Christian Wood stuff. And it's like, your kid's not even playing Christian Wood and all this stuff. So like, if you want to take that route, you can formulate an opinion with takes on that to, have your confirmation take on that. Just like I think there can be people on the other side that can plant their flag on no, this isn't Jason Kidd. He took us to Western Conference Finals, last year. We haven't heard anything about Luka not liking him. Kyrie Irving. I mean, is that one of the reasons Kyrie Irving, was agreed to come here and all this stuff is because of relationships. We hear about relationships all the time. And he had a good defense last year. Give him some more help defensively this year with healthier bodies, and he could form it this. Like I can hear both sides making that argument. That's why I'm like kind of indifferent on it. Like I'm not going to sit here and say, dude, Jason Kidd's going to be here for 10 more years and he's going to take us to a title. I'm not confident in that. But I'm also not going to sit here and say, dude, he should be fired right now. He sucks. I'm not in that camp either. I'm kind of indifferent. I can kind of see a little bit of both sides, but I have stronger opinions about some other things, as far as the roster and stuff than I do Jason Kidd right now.
If you looked at the positive end of that, something you mentioned a little bit, you could also look at, okay, well, Jason Kidd elevated the team last year. He has not elevated the team this year. Okay, well, he's 1-1. Is that enough?
Yeah.
Is this season enough? Has it gone that bad? Has it gone that bad enough where we knew going into the season they didn't, if anything, they had the same amount of talent as last year, but a worse fitting roster because the defense was going to be worse. That was a strength of the team last year. They were going to replace the points of Brunson. They've replaced the points of Brunson. They did not replace the other stuff, and that was the other stuff that we've been talking about all year. And so I don't think this season alone is worth firing. And they just went to the Western Conference Finals last year. So I'm not at that point where fire Jason Kidd. I don't think he's elevated this team. I don't think that I'm not waiting around for anything to change this season either. I'm going to see what happens next year and see then. So I'm not at that point either. I'm with you on this, where there are some bigger problems that I think need to be addressed. And then we'll see. Because we did just see this team go to the Western Conference Finals, and the coaching elevated them. I really believe that still.
And it's give and take, too, because I think there could be somebody listening to this saying, yeah, well, how much was that Jason Kidd? That was Luka carrying them to the finals, Luka and Brunson. Okay, well, when the team goes the other direction and goes bad, then it's Jason Kidd's fault. But when it was good, it was Luka
carried, and when it's bad, Jason Kidd didn't do enough.
We got to be consistent with that. I will say one of the things, let's just talk about the Christian Wood thing here at the end for a little bit. I feel like that's one of the bigger reasons why people, the anti-Kidd people right now are saying, hey, he only played 15 minutes. What he's done to Christian Wood this year is unforgivable and all this stuff. And all I'm going to say to that is there's so much stuff that we watch Christian Wood in a Mavericks jersey for 15 minutes a game or 18 minutes a game.
Dude, Kyrie's, you see me for 3 hours and you think you know me. There's not 21 other hours in the day. That was a Kyrie bar. He's something like
and there's just so much stuff that goes into decisions of playing time, from practices to coaching conversations to defense.
How about knowing the system? We don't know the system.
Yeah.
Jason Kidd watches it and says, okay, I know who knows the system and who doesn't, and who makes egregious decisions. Every once in a while we catch, and I know, okay, Christian Wood didn't know what he was doing on defense there. How many more times do you think Jason Kidd catches that than we do?
Yeah. And we just don't know how the conversations are going and all of that. So you have to remind yourself, or you don't have to, but the situation that Christian Wood stepped into, that a Houston Rockets team was trying to give him away for nothing. Dallas was trying to trade him before the deadline.
Yep.
And like couldn't find a ton of takers for him at the deadline. So it's like there's been a disconnect with the coaching staff. There's reasons beyond just the small bits of playing time and the step back three and the dunk in the lane. That's fun. That's a microwave score. That's awesome. But there's just more that goes into that equation than what we see. And it's just easy to fall in love with hey, anytime we lose and Christian Wood plays under a certain amount of minutes, we think about the threes that he hits or the dunks in the lane. It's like, why isn't he playing 30 minutes? And there's stuff that I don't even know, like that happens outside of the game that plays into stuff like that.
Well, and you just look at this team and say, okay, what does this team need? This team needs defense and connective tissue. They can score. They've always been able to score this season. And Christian Wood's not answering those questions, right? And I just tweeted out the numbers with Luka and Kyrie. It's super early. Luka and Kyrie and Christian Wood, it's like a negative 50 net rating. It's just really like it's just not worked. And so you're not getting more minutes with Luka, Christian Wood, and Kyrie like all together. Like you're not getting that. That's not the answer. And so then you're limited with when he can play.
If that's your only reason why you're calling for Kidd's head is for him not playing a guy that they traded hardly anything for, that will probably get the MLE, in the offseason, and that he's not playing him more, that I just need more than that. It's like, I want to hear some other reasons. And if you're in the camp of like Jason Kidd should be here for 10 years, I want to hear your reasons too, because I haven't seen a lot there either to prove that he should be your coach, for all of Luka's career at the same time. So
yeah, I think both can be true. I don't think Jason Kidd's done a good job. I also don't think that Christian Wood is like this answer that would, if he played him more, would all of a sudden answer all these questions the Mavericks have, right? Like I think both of those things can be true.
Yes.
So there you go. Guys, let us know in the comment section, how would you grade Jason Kidd's job this season? Give us some reasons in there. Try to answer it besides just Christian Wood. Maybe we'll do that because it seems like that's the only answer people have given. Guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.